And now we want to get into an interactive session here on Prime Edition to talk about just what the impact of the protests that have been going on for the past 3 weeks or so had on the tourism sector. We know that some events have been cancelled, others postponed, and how are hotels and catering companies just dealing with the new reality? To talk about this is Mike Macharia, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Betty.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Let's just start right there. The protests that have been ongoing. We've seen some cancellations. What have your members experienced?
The truth of the matter, Betty, is that the cancellations have been minimal.
Okay.
We had trouble last Tuesday last week, and the day before yesterday. Before that, the protests were fairly peaceful. But even when we had the trouble, we usually we activate what is known as a crisis operating procedure, where we put our people in various places to monitor the situation. And we are able to get both our staff and tourists safe passage, even in trouble spots. So when the first signs of violence broke out the week before, we had requests for cancellations. But what we did is we simply asked the people to reschedule their bookings, and a good number were able to. So generally the impact is very, very low.
We saw the CS of tourism telling people, you know, do not cancel your travels, Kenya is safe. Yeah. We also saw the Prime Cabinet Secretary release a statement to embassies and consulars saying that Kenya is safe.
Yes.
So when it comes to tourism, it's a very delicate sector in terms of brand and perception. What is the impact of such unrest, so to say, even if it's a one-day affair or two-day affair to the industry?
Usually, tourism, yes, depends a lot on the macro environment. So anything happening at a macro level can affect tourism. It could be highland malaria. It could be the floods that we had a few months ago. It could be an incident outside of Kenya, for example, like we had with the hurricanes off the coast of the US. It does affect. So what we need at that point in time is information. We need as much facts as possible on the ground, and we need to communicate that to our people, particularly the source markets, immediately. And this is what we did last week. We sent out a statement on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the day before yesterday, we sent another statement at night. And this recovered quite a number of bookings that had been, where the apprehension was within the markets. But yes, a lot of macro issues can affect us. But I think over the years, since the Kaya Bombo clashes of '97, coming into elections in 2008, and COVID, which was a really, really big one, I think we've, as an industry, sort of like perfected the act of recovery in terms of crisis. And we see that our industry is very resilient. It picks up very quickly, even when there is apprehension. As soon as things are sorted out, it picks up. It helps, like you say, to get an official government statement. The Prime Cabinet Secretary sent one out. I think the Cabinet Secretary for Interior sent out another one. The Kenya Tourism Board also beefed up our statement. And of course, yesterday when CS Mutua sent out that press release and did the press conference, it helps to recover these bookings.
As you've mentioned, the sector is very resilient. I mean, we are yet to get to our pre-COVID numbers, but the sector has been trying very hard to recover. What would you say the industry is doing to keep up the momentum?
From the industry perspective, the partnership with government, particularly with the Kenya Tourism Board, is very, very important. We need to get that going. We need a lot more money allocated to KTB, which is a bit of a chicken and egg now that we don't have the finance bill of the Finance Act of 2024, which was proposing additional funds for marketing and promotion. But when you look at what we usually ask for in terms of marketing against the total budget, we are still confident that it can be maintained even under the old Act of 2023. So it's important that the Tourism Board is facilitated to enable it to conduct the marketing that it needs to do. There are other issues that are policy by nature, and one of those is access into the country. You know, the last time we were here after COVID, we were talking about air access into the country. And what we were requesting government to do at that point is to just return the flights, the frequencies that we had before COVID. And some of those frequencies have come back. Some of them haven't come back. We are still yet to see Turkish Airlines back into Mombasa. We are yet to see Qatar Airlines, even though we have new airlines that have come in under new bilateral service agreements. I think we have Indigo from India. We have Fly Dubai directly from Dubai. And now we have Air Asia. And we've seen Brussels Airlines coming back in the month of June. And we are grateful. But we still need to have a little bit more of air access, because that's I mean, it's a main, because we are a long-haul destination. It is a main routing for clients to get here if they're not coming from the region. And even when they're coming from the region, if you look at our markets, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, DR Congo, Ethiopia growing, they still need air access into Kenya. So that's an area that is of utmost importance. It's a low-hanging fruit because it doesn't require huge investments. All you need is a policy direction. The second one, now to get to the numbers that we want, we've been talking about a convention center, either in Nairobi or in Mombasa. We had a discussion last week with the governor of Kwale, and she asked us, why do you speak about conventions only in Nairobi and Mombasa? We also need a convention center in Kwale. But we can start in Nairobi because there's places that had been earmarked for development. Bomas of Kenya, for example. If we could get a proper, huge conference center, of course with the requisite infrastructure around it, and then of course now combine that with air access. The other area I saw KTB talking about diaspora and diasporans. We had our 20th annual symposium just last week, and we invited some speakers, and fortunately one of them was from Uganda, one from the Netherlands, and two from the US. And one of them from the US told us that there is a market that we haven't tapped in. He was an African-American professor, and he says, look, you still have an opportunity to attract the African-American market because the Americans that we see coming into the country are not from that particular grouping. So there's a lot that we can do to quicken the numbers, I mean, the achievement of the numbers that we aspire to reach. Right.
Clearly, there's a lot to be done, and there are quite some opportunities there. Yes. You mentioned the issue of aviation, and aside from the airlines coming in, there's the issue of our very own infrastructure here. We have seen in the recent past a number of issues at JKIA, and the government has been working to rectify that. But what does it do, especially for frequent travelers who go elsewhere and find better infrastructure and they come here? Do you think this chases away repeat visitors?
We had some years back planned to expand the international airport, Jomo Kenyatta. You remember the Greenfields project that was put on hold under the previous regime. Jomo Kenyatta, as it is, can handle a number of passengers. But when you look at the frequencies and the arrival times and departure times of most international flights, they all seem to be concentrated within a certain period of time in the evening. And maybe we could look at, within our bilateral service agreements, we could look at some airlines arriving in the low peak areas, because for a large period of time during the day, nothing happens generally at Jomo Kenyatta. But go there from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., it's a beehive of activity. We had also mooted the idea of using other airports. Mombasa is ready, is an international airport ready, not utilized to the full capacity. I think only about 3 or 4 international airlines land there scheduled, as opposed to in addition to the charters. Kisumu, again, you arrive at Kisumu, you have immigration counters. All that is needed in Kisumu from a technical point of view, we are told, is just to increase the thickness of the runway in terms of the bitumen, so that it can land wider body aircraft. And we have an airport in Isiolo that is underutilized. Eldoret is just doing cargo for the time being. And we've talked about Malindi Airport for a long time, being able to also bring in international visitors. But to give credit where it's due, the Kenya Airports Authority have tried very much, because, you know, they have to look after all the major airports. They also have to look at all the airstrips. And some of these airstrips are service airstrips. Some of them are medical, and some of them are touristic in nature. We asked them to extend the runway in Diani, the old Ukunda airstrip. And it was done. We are now landing Dash 8 aircraft at full capacity because of the 200-meter extension. So step by step, we are getting there. But what we could do is utilize the existing infrastructure better, so that you're not having everybody coming into Jomo Kenyatta while Kisumu is idle with just local airlines. Yet, if you're taking a safari from Kisumu to Masai Mara, it's less travel time. It's about 4 hours to get to Mara from Kisumu, and it is about 5 to 6 hours driving from Nairobi.
So is the traffic that is concentrated at JKIA?
Yes.
Speaking of still on infrastructure, away from the aviation infrastructure, there is the roads that lead us to facilities.
Yes.
How is the condition right now?
The road infrastructure, again, we have made major gains. If you look at the main feeder roads that we were talking about a few years ago, Maimahio to Narok to Sekenani Gate, they are done. The Mount Narok route, Voi to Tabeta, Mombasa to Malindi. Right now, there is the Mombasa to Malindi through Bombolulu is actually being expanded into a dual carriageway from Vipingo all the way to Kilifi. Save for a very short distance between Mavueni and Kilifi is all done. You have the Kaloleni Road that goes through Mavueni and comes out at Moi International Airport at the back there at the SGR. And you have the Dongokundu bypass, which is complete. Now you can drive from Mombasa Airport and also from SGR, the final stop at Miritini. You can drive all the way to Diani, and it takes you about 40 minutes at most. There's a Samburu Road that hits from, if you're traveling down towards Mombasa, 90 kilometers past Voi, you get to Samburu. That road takes you to a place known as Kinango in Kwale County. And from Samburu to Kinango is full tarmac now. It's a full road. So we are now asking the government to look at just that short distance between Kinango and Ukunda, so that you're able to drive from Nairobi to Mombasa. The main one, Nairobi Nakuru, we need a dual. We need a dual carriageway there, and if we can extend it all the way to Kisumu, that would really, really help. Yeah.
So those are the main roads.
Those are the main roads. I mean, I've not even mentioned the northern circuit, where now we are having from Kenol up to the junction of Nyeri, the Maroa place, dualed. From there, going upwards all the way to Meru, all the roads are good. Going towards Isiolo and Samburu and Shaba, up to the northern circuit, up to Turkana, we have good roads.
Right.
So all we need to do is now ensure that they are maintained regularly so that we don't lose them.
Maintenance is very important. Yeah. The CS for Tourism has been doing rounds across the country to map out potential tourism sites.
Yes.
Especially in the counties that are yet to be tapped.
Yeah.
How is the industry, specifically where you sit, how is it preparing to support these new sites that are being discovered?
This is something that we did at the advent of devolution. We had what we called the tourism network. It was an initiative under our umbrella body, Kenya Tourism Federation, where we actually went to every county and tried to map out what do they have, what are their advantages. And in some areas, we suggested that counties get together. If you look at the counties, what we call the Western Bloc, from South Nyanza, coming all the way to Kakamega, going towards Mumias, and going towards Busia and Kisumu itself. We have what is known now as the Lake Victoria tourism circuit. So it encompasses all those, and you have complementary products. What you have in Kisumu, you might not get in Kakamega, you might not get in Bungoma, and you might not get in Kisii. Coming to the Rift, there was a North Rift a tourism body formed, NOREB, putting together the Rift counties, Nyandarua, and so on and so forth. We went to Coast. You remember the Jumuiya ya counties of Pwani, an initiative again by the tourism industry. At that time was led by Governor Joho and Governor Kingi and Governor Mvurya when he was in Kwale. So it's something that we've done. We've actually gone out and even mapped out the tourism products that are there. So all we need to do now is get the counties to highlight them, and we sell them together.
Right. Yeah. Classification of hotels. There is an exercise that is going on.
Yes.
To classify them and, I don't know, standardize, so to say.
Yes.
How is this going to help the industry?
The classification is a very good tool for marketing because it gives you a semblance of the quality that you would expect when you visit a destination. So we've always had classification in Kenya. The only thing is that it's a national classification, so it takes time to undertake. It requires a lot of facilitation, particularly in financial resources. Then, when the East Africa community came together, first of all, the three states, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the original East African states, decided that we need to standardize our product. You need to be in a 5-star hotel in Kisumu, should be the same as a 5-star hotel in Tanga or in Jinja in Uganda. Then, of course, the other countries came along. We have Rwanda now, we have Burundi, we have Somalia, which is a new entrant, we have South Sudan, Ethiopia, now we have DRC. So what I can foresee happening is that the countries that are ready, because we've reviewed the classification criteria, we've made it a bit easier. Before the criteria was quite long and tedious. It's a bit easier now. We are taking care of products that did not exist when the original criteria was mooted, and these are the Airbnbs. So that criteria, that the Airbnbs will also be taken care of. So it's something that we do need to do. The only trick is that we need to do it challenge is that we need to do it regularly. Yeah.
And as we classify the EAC facilities, is this going to be in tandem with the international classification as well?
Our criteria is actually quite thorough. In some instances, we find it even more thorough than some of our source markets out there. But mainly because within the source markets, there are other developments within the source markets. For example, access. You find that in the source markets you have speed trains, you have public transport networks that assist you there. You have environmental laws that are easy to adapt to, because the back end of the infrastructure by government is taken care of. But yes, we will be able to compete internationally. It's an international standard criteria that we should follow.
Great, that is great. Yeah. Let's talk about the human resource in the industry, in the hospitality industry.
Yes.
We know that Kenya has one of the best training grounds and one of the best personnel.
Yes.
How do we compete globally in terms of HR?
From the point of view of hospitality and tourism, we are way ahead. You go to Dubai, a place like Jumeirah Beach, the Palm, majority of the employees are Kenyans. You go to Qatar at the airport, majority are Kenyans. The people who are working in hotels, they are Kenyans. It means that then we are doing something right here to be able to supply human resources out there. The island of Jersey of the UK. In the US, most of the resorts, in fact, I was surprised. There is one time we had gone, it's a long time ago, we had gone to New York, and we were staying in New Jersey. And the lady who drove us from New York to New Jersey was a Kenyan lady from Kisii. So we are supplying human resources out into the world. What we need to do is avail those jobs locally, so that we are able to compete even from a compensation point of view, and we are not, so that we don't lose out too much, because at the end of the day, if you're able to supply those jobs here, then the skills would remain here and the development would happen here locally. So we need to look at a model of economic growth that gives a lot more compensation to our employees than we are at the moment. On the flip side, we have the highest ratio of employee. We are very labor intensive. So 40% of our revenue goes to payroll and related. It's huge when you look at other sectors that have gone digital, like banks. They are able to achieve a ratio of about 4 to 6%. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there's still a lot of a requirement for labor in our industry. So what we need to do is make sure we get more investments and we are able to employ more people. Yeah.
Before we close the conversation, let's talk about domestic tourism. I know that this particular sector has grown over the years.
Yes.
What are we doing to ensure that we keep the local tourists, visiting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our domestic agenda, you recall, when the last time I was here, I said we started in 2008. We put together a domestic tourism strategy under the Ministry of Tourism. In fact, at that time, the minister, as they were known, came to us and told us, we don't have money to put this strategy together. So find us volunteers. So they gave us some officers and we put together a team of volunteers and we set out with a strategy post 2008. And that strategy is what the Tourism Board was following. And we continued promoting. Even now we have core promotions, and you will see in a few days KTB launching the Tembea Kenya campaign, which we do together. We supply hotel rooms, some people supply transport, others supply airline, and we do a promotion either on radio or on TV. And we went on this campaign, and the response was always around 20-30% of the total numbers. Now, the best thing to have happened to domestic tourism was COVID, because after lockdown, everybody sort of like had these campaigns that we'd been running for years on end without a response, and they responded. So now, the domestic and regional, if you look at the numbers right now, Kenyan travelers, Ugandan and Tanzanian, and lump them together, they are a bigger market than any external source market. So what does that tell us? It tells us that there's huge potential. We still need to continue speaking to our domestic market. We need to continue encouraging them to visit. And now we are seeing different patterns. While before we were seeing travel in the holiday seasons of April, August and December, we are now seeing some off-holiday travel where people just take weekends out. They go visit a place like Nanyuki and then come back. So we've got to continue with this promo. We cannot ignore that market. It's very big. In fact, if we are able to command 50% of our tourism from domestic, that would give us a base. Then the rest would now just come to fill up.
Right. So as we now close the conversation, I'll give you 30 seconds. Just give us your closing remarks. What is the way forward for the industry?
We are seeing growth. That is what we are forecasting. At our symposium last week, we reviewed the last 20 years. Where were we when we started this symposium 20 years ago? Where are we now? And where do we need to go? And the decision was that even from a strategic point of view, we should do away with these 5-year strategy cycles. We need to look further. So our symposium was actually themed the next 20. What do we need in the next 20 years? If, say, for example, you need a light rail or an underground train system, is that something that you can achieve on a 5-year cycle strategy? Maybe not. So we are now looking at what we can do. Interestingly enough, we discussed the role of Gen Zs, because the next 20 years, they'll be the ones now running the show. They'll have moved from being 20-something-year-olds to 40-something and 50. They'll be the ones taking over the business. There'll be a new crop of whatever name they'll be given, whether it'll be alpha again, going back to the alphabet. But we discussed a lot about the role of Gen Zs. And we employ around 80% of them. In our hotels, if you walk into any hotel, just look at the number of young people who are serving there. The young cooks, the young housekeepers, the young waiters, the young managers that are running the show. So we actually had to discuss, how do we bring them in? How do we deal with them? And then, of course, the role of artificial intelligence within the next 20 years.
The new frontier.
We need, as a country, to stop thinking 5 years. We need to stop thinking 1 year. In fact, these budget cycles, finance bills of 1 year are not sustainable. We need to be thinking, in some instances, 4 to 5 year plans of financing.
Awesome. Thank you very much for speaking with us. I have been speaking with Mike Macharia, who is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, just taking stock of where the industry is at and where they are going. He says 20-year plan, not 5, not 1, but 20. Well, that is where we close business this evening. Sports news is coming up with Daniel Wahome. Do stay tuned.